I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the Monday, April 30th meeting of the Clinton Public Schools School Committee. We'll start by a motion, seeking a motion to approve the bills.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
And there's a second. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor? Approved unanimously, thank you. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting of April 9th?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
And a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion being made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the minutes? There being none, all those in favor? Unanimous. We have our student representative with us tonight. Sam.
As you may be aware, the CHS Student Council is yet again holding a blood drive on Friday, May 11th, 2018. It happens to be the last one of the year. Right now, our school is in the lead for first place in Massachusetts, but we are only leading by 1 unit of blood. To be first in the state, it takes a lot: dedication, hard work, and most importantly, consistency. We value our donors and encourage you to help us keep the lead, considering Ware High School is expected to collect more units than us in their final drive. Our seniors benefit greatly from this, for they receive ample scholarship opportunities that help them further their education. Appointments are available to schedule through our email address, and walk-ins are welcome. Since 2012, we have been first in the state until last year when we came in second, so please help us to retake the title.
And it's May 18th?
May 11th.
May 11th. May 11th, and people can sign up
Yes,
through
you can sign up
Red Cross?
online at the Red Cross website, or you can just walk in.
Okay. And you feed them well?
Yes.
The cookies are amazing. Yes. If you're watching at home, the cookies are amazing. Come out and give blood on May 11th. Do we have PTA report tonight? Hi.
So we had a really fun time Saturday working with the track event that was over there with Dave Vanass and Jack McGrail. We just worked the concession stands, had a great time, a lot of support from the schools, the teachers, current teachers, past teachers, so it was fun. It was a great event for the community, the PTA, and everybody just thought it was a great event to take part in. We'll probably be helping them out again in the June track meet that they have over there. Our next meeting is May 24th, and that is about it. We are in the works for planning our trivia night in June for June 9th. And that's it.
And if people want to participate in that, how do they get in touch with PTA? You?
For the trivia night?
Yep.
Yes, we're still planning, but last year that's what we did. We pre-sold tickets for that, which we'll advertise posters and more for that. But if they're interested now, they can get in touch with myself or Kate Morin.
Okay. And May 24th, the meeting is where?
The Clinton Middle School Library.
Great.
All right,
Thanks very much. Special needs pack.
Hi, Kelly.
Good evening.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi. On April 5th, we had our Basic Rights Night with the Federation for Children with Special Needs facilitating our meeting. It was held in the CES library at our regular meeting time of 6:30. We had some new people come, and we also had someone from out of town come. So when we have like a meeting with a speaker or whatever, it's always open. You don't have to be a member of the town to go to. Our next meeting is this Wednesday night at the CS Library at 6:30 p.m. It's our typical meeting. We meet the first Wednesday of each month. And we received 10 applicants for our scholarship for June. And the committee will be selecting the recipient at the end of the meeting. We'll break and do that away from everyone that comes. But we're pretty excited that we got 10 applicants our first year out for it. So we're pretty excited. So thank you.
Good for you. Thanks very much. Anything from the CTA tonight?
Nothing to see.
Thank you. Is there any public comment tonight? As always, we reserve the right to revisit that if need be. So we have our Students of the Month and Employee of the Month, and if you would indulge us just a little bit longer, Mr. Superintendent, I think you had a couple of items that you wanted us to get to first before we get to that.
Yeah, I'll just do these two quick ones, and then we can get there.
Okay.
We do have a leave of absence request. Danielle Lefebvre is currently just wrapped up her maternity leave, her FMLA maternity leave. She is requesting to finish the year on a unpaid leave. In the contract, they're able to do that with the school committee approval. We're, from an administrative standpoint, we're okay with that, just as we're willing to approve her continued maternity leave.
So can I have a motion to accept the leave of absence request, continued leave of absence request?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All right. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
And the other kind of bit of housekeeping was just retirement notification, and I think we received one retirement letter that Walter O'Malley will be retiring from Clinton High School at the end of the 2017-2018 school year.
Please extend our thanks to him on behalf of the school committee and grateful thanks for all of his years of dedication.
I think we'll start with we don't have a high school student of the month this month, not because we don't have one, but Mr. Hastings is actually flying back to go pick his daughter up from college. Okay. So he was not able to attend tonight, so we asked if we could push the high school student of the month off a meeting or two. Right. So we will catch up on that. So we'll start, if we could start at the middle school.
Sure. So I will tell you that this is the best part of what we do when we get to recognize students and staff for just all of the great things that they do for the Clinton Public Schools. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Seed and Mrs. Sargent.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So we are here. I'm very proud to have as our Student of the Month, Taylor Thomason. He's being recognized tonight. Fourth grader who came into our building as a shy and conscientious, but very talented. And his talents came out in our all-school play, Milan. And from this, we're finding him to be more confident in the classroom. Taylor is an excellent student who shows respect and concern for everyone, including adults and children. He is always willing to challenge himself. His personality is one that is warm and inviting to all. We are lucky to have such a strong role model for others to follow, and along with his teachers, congratulate him on this honor. We're very proud of him. If we could have Taylor come up, please.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I love your tie.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. You can have a bag too, all right?
And from the elementary school, Mr. Rullo and Mrs. Silvio.
Good evening. We are delighted tonight in order to represent the Clinton Elementary School. We have a young gentleman who is in our second grade. His name is Caden Burgoyne Desesri. Caden has worked tremendously hard in learning strategies in order to not only academically and behaviorally, but he's become a model student at Clinton Elementary School, very involved in our PBIS program, and we are delighted that he has come a long, long way, and we know that there's only so much more for him in the future years. So with that being stated, I'd like to bring up Caden. Please go on up and receive the certificate. There you go.
Don't hide your face. All right.
Don't you love his new haircut?
All right.
All that product?
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
There's a backpack for you.
So, our second honor we have tonight, we have the opportunity in order to honor an Employee of the Month. And for this one is, I'm going to say a few words and I'll turn it over to Ms. Silvio. Because she told me today she didn't need to write anything. She could talk and talk about this person all night long. And I believe that is very true. We're here, we nominated Beth McNally. Beth McNally is our guidance department at the elementary school. She's been very involved in our PBIS system when it first began, and instrumental in that. She's also instrumental in the Children's Fund, which helps many students enjoy the holidays, and sponsors and collects funds from around. Recently, several years ago, she spearheaded the idea of having a therapy dog inside of the system, and it has been not anything except successful at the elementary school level. So much that other districts have been contacting us in order to see how it's done and the impact it's had on our children. So from mine, Beth is always there, able to give a very helpful ear for advice, for working with children, always knows exactly how to work with the children and adults that come through our doors. And she is the epitome of what CPS and CES should all be about. She is a model employee. She has it all straightened out. So for me, I think Beth has done a fantastic job. I would like to bring Beth up, and I know that Ms. Sylvia may have a few other words in order to state. I put you on the spot, right?
Well, I love to say Beth. I can't say enough about Beth. She is, in our jobs, it's difficult to find someone to have that level head in the moment, and she's always my go-to girl. She can always approach things from, many different perspectives and offer that advice when you're making those tough decisions. She leads from the heart. She's passionate about what she does, and it shows. You can tell people that come to work, and you can tell people who come to work and live what they do, and she definitely does. She's always coming from a kid's perspective, which is so important in what we do, and she's working with kids that need someone to be their advocate constantly, and she consistently does that, and she's an asset to Clinton Public Schools, and I would be lost without her, so I'm super grateful that she's our employee. Secretly, I just wanted Maggie.
All right, guys.
Thank you so much.
You'd probably rather shake her hand.
Congratulations. Thank you very much. Congratulations. You can have a backpack as well. Put the dog in it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your successes with us. Thank you, Mrs. McNally, for the 10,000 things I'm sure you do every day for our students. I think so.
right, the next portion of the presentation is a PowerPoint presentation. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the plans we have right now for the elementary school and the middle school, and some changes in special education as we move towards next year. Hopefully they'll continue to search and find it. There we go. All right, so our first part will be on, we'll talk a little bit about the Clinton Elementary School. So Mr. Rowe, you want to come on up and join me here? And what we want to do is we want to talk about, so we've looked at different things in terms of scheduling, different programs, like different things we've got in place this year, like the WIN block, those types of things. And what we wanted to do is kind of update you. Our goal for this presentation is to try to make it so that the school committee has kind of a better understanding of kind of what we think a typical student's day or student's opportunities might look like based on what we have for next year. So we'll start at the elementary school.
All right, so we have the Clifton Elementary School and the school day, so you have an understanding of what takes place. The elementary school is partitioned into several different areas. First of all, you have a preschool, which has two different programs that take place. One begins at 9:30, ends at 11:30, and then you have another program that begins at 12:45 and goes to 3:15. From there, we also have a kindergarten that comes in. They come in a little later than the other students do come in. They arrive at 9:15 and they leave with everybody else at 2:55. And finally, grades 1 through 4 for next year, they begin at 8:35 and they also go until 2:55.
So part of the reason we showed this slide, there are no changes to this slide. These are the same current times as this year. However, that's something we'll continue to explore, looking at the busing options in kindergarten in the morning, because it is something that we've heard from parents. But with our bus contract for next year, that'll remain the same for next year.
So one of the areas we were talking about is our daily schedule, so you have an understanding of what a student goes through on there. They begin usually with a morning meeting that takes place in about 15 minutes. That's their opening to what's happening during the day. A chance for the teacher to sit down and just gauge where the child is at that time. They will have a math block, which is 45 minutes, and then a math WIN block, which is 30 minutes. That too gives us that chance in order to work with the students that may be struggling, or also opportunity to work with kids who may be accelerated in that area too. We have an ELA block that is 75 minutes, which is reading and writing, and then a WIN block, which is 45 minutes for ELA. There's a science and social studies, which is an alternating unit connected to ELA, which is 30 minutes long. And there are 6 specials that do take place, K-2, music, phys ed. There's 2 classes that go into phys ed, library, art, health, and computers. Grades 3 and 4, it's the same that take place, except there's also going to be a STEM class that's there. And of course, we have found as years go on, a recess or a dedicated recess is always beneficial to the elementary school students, and there's a 30-minute dedicated time for them to go outside and play.
I think one thing that's important is, as we're working on mapping out the curriculum for next year and really trying to get that, some people might say, well, science and social studies only gets 30 minutes, and it's kind of one block at a time. But the idea is that as we're developing the curriculum, that those units should tie into the ELA block. So we should be able to have sort of thematic units where, if they're studying nonfiction and they're reading about nonfiction, what they're reading about in that unit can tie into what they're studying in science or something like that, or they might read a biography that they can apply to history. So there is sort of an overlap when we map it out, so that you can try to connect the standards there.
For staffing and students is, we're taking a look at some developments and some changes that may be taking place. Assistant principal for curriculum and instruction. She still will be the pre-K to 4 assistant principal in the building, and then curriculum coordinator, pre-K to 6, and the math department head. Under Meg's tutelage, they've come a long way for the curriculum mapping for under math and what we do with under our common planning times. And so that is an area that Meg does excel at, and we're very happy in order to have that part of it. I think it will be a great continuum all the way through from pre-K to 6 once that curriculum coordinator part. The Dean of Students has been an area which is going to help Again, we're going to run our PBIS program. We're going to be involved in the day-to-day activities for our students. We do find at the elementary school, it's a lot of teaching that takes place. It is not as maybe some punitive as often as people may believe it is, so it's an opportunity to teach all the time. That person is going to be more of a guidance counselor. We also have guidance counselors who have 2 full-time positions and a part-time support from the alternative program counselor. We do have a full-year intern candidates that we do have from some local colleges that do help us out tremendously. Grade 4, 7 teachers and 1 special ed teacher. And physical education and health is going to be under our wellness program. We're going to combine the 2 in order to bring them together instead of separating them. Finally, there will be a literacy coach pre-K to 6, and there will also be a new STEM specialist that's going to be between the elementary school and the middle school. Curriculum mapping is taking place in all the grades, including science and social studies. We've worked diligently in making sure it's been done, especially in ELA and mathematics already. I think Meg is now turning her point in order to make sure that the math is continuous, but also work in the areas of science and social studies. As Stephen said earlier, how do those combine into the ELA? How do they all, are part of one another? The WIN block, what I need now is pull-out interventions, related services, and enrichment. And we look forward to that. We began it this year. We'll really get into it much more next year. As it was a great trial this year. Foundations Literacy Program, we have it in grades right now for K, 1, and 2. We're going to bring it up to grade 3 next year. So again, continuing with that. MCAS Tutoring Program, grade 4. One of the benefits of having grade 4 now with us is we've always given the MCAS in grade 3. Students leave us and go to the middle school. Now we have that group there, so we can add and find out where the tests and where the assessments took place, what the needs of those children are, and work on that in grade 4 while we're still going to have them now at the elementary school. STEM Makerspace programs, grades 3 and 4. That is an opportunity for the kids in order to do coding and other programs that are in there. Digital art, grade 4. The art teacher has come to me and not only wants to do art as we're doing now, but wants to expand it to some digital art inside the classrooms. So that's an area we're going to attempt during the 4th grade. And computers, we do some typing, programming, and publishing. And again, as 4th grade comes down, how can we enhance what we're offering under that areas of computers?
I think that's really part of, a lot of this falls under that umbrella of the curriculum mapping for all grades as we try to map out in these specials like computers and art, are we having like a sequence so that they are, learning skills and building upon those skills each year, and we have clear, competencies we want to try to get the kids familiar with in each grade level.
Under programs, emotional behavior, we created, or was created by Lacey and Beth. Recently, we're going to be introducing the calming room, which is going to be part of our guidance department. That's an opportunity for kids who come in who may be having some difficulties quickly to have a spot that they can go into, relax. We can have that, be able to calm them and then move them back after some guidance areas to move them back into the classrooms. So we thought that was an opportunity for us in order to start something there. The Second Step program is now going to be implemented in grade 2. We have that in K and 1 already now. Now we're going to move that up to grade 2 so it's consistent with what we do. Full-year guidance intern, as we stated earlier. And we'll also use the WIN block as an opportunity to do some counseling for that. So kids who need it during those specified times, we can also receive counseling there. I think we have some fantastic after-school programs. We have week-long after-school enrichment programs that are run by the teachers. We began that probably 3 years ago, and we run close to 15 enrichment programs on a yearly basis, all decided and determined by the teachers, and they run in the areas of science, math, and the arts. We just did a play for drama that we do, which is our beginning to entrance to the middle school for there, but we've done computers, science, and a few other areas for them. The Clinton Parks Recreation also works with us. Steve and I met with them earlier this year. They run about 3 to 5 programs at the elementary school, and we work with them for the student bodies in order to do that. So a lot of after-school programs. The after-school daycare program has about 25 students in it now for the before and after-school program. We have talked about the idea of restructuring that program, bringing in the area of STEM and the arts, trying to increase the student enrollment, and with that, increasing some of the staffing that would go on there. Everything that Steve had talked about earlier about the computers and the makerspace, how can we bring that to the after-school program that's for the availability of the children?
All right, I think that's.
Any questions for Mr. Rulo?
Who is in charge of the after-school program? Is that, do you run that, or is somebody else, like delegate that to somebody else?
A funny thing, the enrichment programs I began when I went there.
Sure.
So I run it, but the teachers are the ones who actually create the programs. The after-school daycare is there. There is not a coordinator, but what happens is they pay over the central office. We take care of the register in our office for us, for people who might be interested in it. I work with Annette for the business side of it. And then the program is, we have several people that we hire from the cafeteria, matter of fact, who help run that program.
Okay.
And it's that runs early morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, and then it runs as late as 5:30 in the evening.
Okay.
So what we're trying to do right now is sort of assess what the demand would be for that program, because typically it's full because they sort of have a limited space that they've been working in. And as we can look at the demand, we have the summer to plan to sort of see if we can adjust staffing to meet the demand. And at the same time, well, if we're able to do that, how can we put maybe a little more of an educational focus on it, so it's not just strictly like a daycare program? I mean,
Sure.
There's still going to be, fun components and snack and playtime and whatever. But if we could integrate a little bit of that educational component, more of like a 21st century after school type learning model, then that way we'd be able to, I think it'd just be a more productive program and try to meet the needs of all the students.
Is there a charge for the enrichment programs?
The enrichment program is $50 usually per class, and they run approximately 1 week long. The drama was a little bit longer because it ran much longer, but it's $50. We tried to make it as affordable for the parents as possible, and that's usually about 5 to 6 hours for that.
So so if you're an after-school daycare student,
Right.
but you decide 1 week you want to do an enrichment, you can flip-flop back and forth like that?
You can flip-flop back and forth. That's kind of 2 separate programs in a way, so you'd have to pay for the enrichment program.
Extra, right,
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
And it kind of runs, the after-school enrichment program basically runs in the same model as the summer enrichment program.
Right.
Oh, I see.
So I guess I would ask that if you're restructuring the program anyway and looking at it, I know through my own experience, through conversations with other parents, if there's a way to look at the early release days and providing daycare, I think that would be a huge win for parents as well.
That's been mentioned several times, and opportunity for us to do that.
Yeah, if it works. I mean, if you're looking at it anyway. Anything else for Mr. Rulo?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So next we'll move on to the middle school. So obviously middle school next year, will be grades 5, 6, 7, and 8. Won't be any changes to the start and time of the school day. So I'll turn over to the sergeant here to talk about a little bit what that day might look like.
So we're going to change up the way 5th and 6th grade runs next year, just a little bit. And we're going to have 2 blocks, each at 120 minutes. So one is going to be called Humanities, and in the Humanities block, it's going to be the ELA Social Studies. So they'll be combined. So if I'm the ELA Social Studies teacher, and depending on what I have planned for activities, you have that 120 minutes to get those 2 programs in. So one day you might need 75 minutes of time, and only, so many minutes left to do the social studies, but maybe you have a social studies project coming up and you want 90 minutes the next day and you have 30 minutes. So there's some flexibility, but you have that 120 minutes with the same group of students.
And once again, it provides us opportunities for, if we're going to read a book in ELA, we can read, and we're all reading biographies on founding fathers, and then we're going to write a report on founding fathers, but we're also getting the ELA portion of it. It's not, you're not doing work totally isolated, and you have some more connectivity there.
And that would be our goal with the STEM block as well, with the math and science. Again, making the connection between the two subject areas. And hopefully, with this extended amount of time, we'll have some more labs going where we might be doing some things with velocity, mean, median, mode, and tying it into the science. We're going to continue with the WIN period. And again, the WIN, as Mr. Rulo stated, it's what I need now. And we're going to have a team, a true team next year that will come in and provide these interventions and extra enrichment opportunities for students as well. And then they'll have their specials. The difference next year for specials is they'll be half year, so they'll have 4 for the first half of the year, while the other students have a different 4, and then we'll flip-flop it. So up here, they'll have PE, art, library, and STEM for quarters 1 and 2, and then the quarters 3 and 4 will be health, music, Spanish, and then grade 5 takes technology, because that's on their science, tech, engineering, MCAS test. And 6th graders will continue with computers. So then at the half year, we'll just flip the kids.
And that decision was, so we have 8 specials so that we can have, 8 sections of each of those grades, so that way they can have an aligned prep for the teachers, so that they can hopefully collaborate more. And that we, part of this came from parent feedback as well, that people were saying that, when you had Spanish or something as a, once every 7 days, it was hard to really kind of grasp too much of it. So by thinking of them as like every 4 days, now you're seeing them once or twice a week, you're going to be able to maybe get a little more continuity and a little more stuff done, and then flip for the next semester. One enrichment opportunity, which we didn't put in by name, which we should have done, or we should have done, Project Lead the Way. So for grade 6 for next year, one of the enrichment opportunities during the WIN block will be the Project Lead the Way design and modeling course. Those courses are about 45 days. It takes about 45 days. We're going to try to shoot for doing 3, giving us 60 in our first year, try to get 3 sections of it throughout the WIN block. So hopefully we should be able to get about 3 sections, an opportunity there for WIN block. We'll probably also be able to use either the computer teacher, I think maybe first semester, or the STEM special teacher to try to do maybe some more makerspace type stuff as enrichment opportunities as well when you look at how our staff plays out.
So the STEM teacher will be shared between the elementary and the middle school, and just for grades 5 and 6 for us. Okay, so this is what a typical schedule would look like. And for the last 3 years, we've rotated our schedule. So if you had periods 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the next day you started with period 2 and went 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. Because it's nice to move the students through so that every teacher got to see them in the morning and in the afternoon. So we're trying to mirror that a little bit, as you can see where humanities starts, like this might be day 1, and we end with the STEM. But then on day 2, it would be STEM first and then the humanities. But the WIN and specials, that's gonna stay, because we're gonna share the push-in team both at the elementary and at the middle school. So they're gonna be with us first, and then when they leave, they'll go down to the elementary school.
So we had to lock in a couple things. We don't just do it. It's not like a true rotating schedule due to the sharing of some Title I staff, as we try to really create a true intervention team that's able to go in, and also some of the shared specials. So some of those things had to be a little more fixed. She mentioned though, especially here with just the 2 long blocks, we at least try to flip them on like a day 1, or an odd and even day type rotation.
Steve, can you leave that
Yep.
up for a second?
Yeah.
So it looks like you have the 120 minutes, you have the flexibility for the teachers between the humanities and then through the STEM. Is there going to be pacing guides, mapping guides developed for the teachers? Because it seems like there's a lot of flexibility,
Yeah.
but to make sure that they have the same endpoints.
Yes.
So, yeah, and that's part of what with the assistant principal for curriculum and instruction position for what we're going for next year, or planning on for next year, those responsibilities would go pre-K to 6. So we're trying to make sure that we're mapping that all the way through the 6th grade. So yeah, so even though, so the idea is to make sure that we're using those thoughtfully to try to, enhance, like we said, the overlap, and try to make sure that we can maybe do some more authentic type assessments and those types of projects. But yeah, having that scope and sequence and that pacing is important as well.
And the prep period, right now, at the middle school, they don't have a consistent prep. By offering them the consistent prep, the STEM teachers could meet, the humanities teachers could meet, and there should be consistency. We should be teaching the same thing, but the way we might teach it, because of our teaching styles, might look different, but the curriculum that's being taught should be the same.
So,
Go ahead.
so does that mean that you have common planning time 5 days a week?
It's not common planning. I wouldn't use the term common planning.
It's their
I'd
prep.
say it's
We're
an
hoping
aligned
they-
prep.
Right. We're hoping
Sure,
they
sure,
use
small
that.
c.
Yes.
It's a time that's common to everyone, not necessarily, okay.
But it's not like it's their
They
prep
might-
time, so we can't say, we're not forcing them to come sit in a room together. But at least they're all off together, so that if they want to seek each other out during that time,
There can be communication.
Mhm. Yep.
Is any math and science teacher a STEM teacher? Or that's what I was a little confused, is if STEM was like a special designation of teacher, or is it just like the way any math or science teacher is a,
Certification for
is
it.
Their certification, they can teach anything.
Up through 6th grade, it's
6.
basically 1
an
to 6
elementary.
elementary certification.
It's elementary.
Yeah.
okay.
They're just not allowed to specialize in only one subject. That's the only restriction. So by teaching math and science, they're teaching multiple subjects.
Okay.
Then we have what 7th grade will look like for next year, so a little bit of change there as well. So we have full year courses, which would be the ELA math, social studies, science. But then we're going to flip-flop literacy period and computers. And our goal is the literacy period would be like a block with the ELA. That's our goal, so that they have a period and a half, or for the first half of the year, they'd have the same group. Then the second half of the year, they flip-flop the students, so that they have more time with the ELA standards.
Similar to the freshman seminar model at the high school.
That's our goal. And then they'll have specials, again, 1 quarter each. So some students will be in art, while others will be in health, Spanish, and then phys ed, and then they'll rotate. So every quarter, so now there's more consistency too, and they have more time in each of the specials.
Yep. So we're trying to kind of look at the specials and these courses in general, and try to make it more of a transition towards like a high school model. So instead of them being in more of that elementary model where you might have, this on day 1, this on day 2, this on day 3, it's more like you have art for a quarter. And then at the end of the first quarter, you have health for a quarter. Same thing with the computers course. Instead of having it, a couple days of a cycle, they have it for half a year. So that way they're able to kind of get some consistency there. They'll have electives of chorus and band that we'll figure out. There might be some other enrichment opportunities we might be able to work into, like I said, with possibly the computers teacher, the STEM
And that would
teacher.
happen during the WIN block.
Yep.
So 7th graders will have a WIN block, but at the end of the day.
So this is what their schedule might look like. And you can see these ones, we kind of coded these together because they'll probably be the same teacher for so they would have that double
Consistency.
period of like ELA for half a year.
Any questions on that?
Does it rotate through the days or just fixed?
Again, some of this will be consistent because of the staffing, but if we can, and we're looking at that now, is trying to rotate like the morning part of it.
So you don't have math every morning?
Yes.
So we're gonna have to, we know we're gonna have to kind of fix the, like the specials and the, well, yeah, we should have to fix the specials depending on which ones they are. Because they didn't do the other ones.
Right.
And the wind block, those have to probably be fixed, but the other ones during the day, we might be able to work out a rotation within the grades.
And again, for that reason, so that they're rotated through from
So the kid who's-
first period in the
So the
morning.
kid who's late is not missing math every day?
You're not, exactly, you don't miss math every day.
Yeah.
For 8th graders,
So 8th grade is pretty similar to what the 7th grade will look like. Again, they'll have full year courses, which would be the ELA Math, Science, and Social Studies. And again, they're gonna have that literacy period, which would combine, again, with the ELA, and with consistency, we're hoping to have the same teacher. And then they'll flip-flop with tech ed. 8th graders need the tech ed because that is part of the science, tech, engineering MCAS test. Then they'll have specials just like the 7th graders, 1 per quarter. And again, we want to build that consistency so that they're getting more of something and building off of it. And then this would be the win block, which is the electives being offered. So we'll have some electives and we'll have a form similar to the high school, which I'll be reaching out to the high school guidance department to see how to form that. But we'll let kids choose, and if they don't choose an elective, one of the ones we're offering, we will still have, because it's the win block, what I need now. So we may be putting students in like a remedial math support based on MCAS, or just they need support in general. It could be ELA, science, or social studies.
2 questions. So they could technically have Spanish year for a full year through the win block time?
Yes.
And then for your academy kids, how will this schedule impact them?
For the duals, so if they want Spanish, we're gonna be talking to the high school to see if they can pick up a Spanish before they come over, since it would be in the afternoon during WIN, or if they can't fit it in, it is in the afternoon and it wouldn't rotate, so that they'd be with us every afternoon. But the only problem is some of my Spanish students are also band or chorus students.
Can your 8th grade schedule mirror the high school's rotation so you don't run into?
We're gonna do the best that we possibly can, so that there's not a lot of missed classes.
And high school doesn't really rotate, so high school just kind of has, they drop and they have a double, and they drop and they have a double, but they pretty much stay the same, so.
Right, but we have, what, the 10 to 15 kids that potentially go in that
Yeah.
academy?
Yes.
And we'll make that work as we identify those. I think one thing to note is in the specials, we do have music as a quarter-long special for 8th grade. In 7th grade, you notice that was Spanish. So the idea now is we're kind of building more with our form. There's more of a building kind of that program, right? So they can get exposed to Spanish with the 1 out of every 4 days throughout the year in grade 5 and 6. In grade 7, now you get a solid like quarter of it, like it's kind of a class. And then that might be enough to say, yeah, you know what, I'd like to take a full year of Spanish and be ready to take Spanish 2 by the time I enter high school. So those are just kind of how we're trying to think about how this can build and support that, not just be a special.
Exactly, and Project Lead the Way would be for 8th grade. We have it for 6th grade, and then we would have it for 8th grade.
And the Project Lead the Way for 8th grade is the automation and robotics. And that would run similar, we'd probably be able to run 3 cycles of it in that one period. And that would be for next year during the first year as we kind of pilot it, see how it goes from there, and see what we can get. So kind of almost the same graphic, so tech ed instead of the computers, music instead of Spanish, a couple
And then
more.
a couple more electives. So another change that we're looking at for next year is going trimesters. And I think this will be big for us, because right now we're on quarters, and it seems like when it's time to go do that first quarter progress report, 22 and a half days into the school year, 6th grade's gone to Nature's Classroom, so they've missed a week. It took us a little bit of time just in the beginning of the year getting to know kids, doing some diagnostic testing, so you don't really have grades. So my teachers have been asking for the last couple of years, what would it look like if we could go trimester? So Dr. Meyer and I have been looking at this and trying to figure out how that would align with the classes that are a full year, and we got it to work as close as possible.
Would the special education progress reports mirror that?
Yes.
I mean, would have to double check with Kathy, I don't know if you clarified that. With
Would
special
special
progress.
ed progress reports mirror this?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So and so I think right now, the elementary school is on trimesters already. So I think that for most parents in 4th and 5th grade,
transition.
the 5th and 6th grade next year, it'll be kind of something that they're not totally unfamiliar with. And then it'll be, for the 7th and 8th grade, once they're kind of used to it, it'll be all right. So.
It'll give more time to, in that academic area, to improve, because the goal is to try to conference with them more, so that if someone's struggling, we have time to help them to get grades up, work with the parents, work, and with the WIN block and having that push in, I think it's going to benefit.
Can we keep data on the kids that have literacy the first half versus the second half when it comes to MCAS now?
Oh, yeah, we'll break it
that's
down.
very
Just to
good.
see if there's an impact there.
And we'll look at the same thing too with the literacy first and the technology and just try to look at how much does that
There might be
impact
no
that.
impact there because they have ELA year-round, but if we could take a look at that,
Yeah.
cohorts.
Good point, yes, thank you.
Any other questions? Is there any concerns with the trimester grading? I mean, that's kind of a new one, we talked about it, just want to make sure that you guys are okay with that. All right, so I think we're moving on to special education.
We already do trimester, supposed to be
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of things. We're talking about sort of a vision for special education, and this vision is kind of built around a few things. One of them is access. Trying to make sure that we're providing all special education students with access to highly qualified content area teachers and grade level peers. Providing support for all special education students in the least restrictive environment. And trying to make sure we're supporting that through co-teaching, push-ins, and pull-out models in order to meet the needs of all learners. And trying to create pathways for success, basically connecting special education students to a regular classroom to provide pathways for exiting a substantially separate program and being able to move into a least restrictive environment. So that's sort of the overarching vision, right? These access, the support, and sort of this pathway, this connection to another classroom. What's some of the rationale for this? One is the Massachusetts Equity Plan. This is a direct quote from the Massachusetts Equity Plan that says, "Our moral imperative is to ensure that all students have equitable access to high-quality educators. Under the federal Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA states districts must identify and address any disparities that result in historically disadvantaged student groups being taught at higher rates by teachers who are inexperienced, out of field, or lower rated." So where does that come into play? What it comes into play is sort of in this out of field quote there. Okay, so what we're trying to do is make sure that if a teacher is going to be your English teacher, we want to try to connect them to a teacher who is licensed to teach English, as opposed to just licensed to teach moderate disabilities. And that's trying to build that connection there. There's a Massachusetts has come out with the Massachusetts Inclusive Practice Guidebook. They highlight the fact that in Massachusetts, students with learning or communication disabilities who are educated full-time in general education settings are nearly 5 times as likely to graduate high school in 4 years or fewer than are similar students in substantially separate placements. So this is based off a research paper trying to compare similar students in different programs. And the new Massachusetts 2018 accountability system, which will actually go into place this fall, is basically it's focusing on raising the floor. Okay, so essentially, now if you remember we were talking about that last time, they said their last version of the accountability system focused on closing the gaps. And what they said is they're not trying to really close the gap, because there's 2 ways to close a gap. You can lower the top or you can raise the bottom. What they're really focused on is raising the floor. And so that they're going to be assessing the performance and growth of the lowest 25% of students. And essentially, they want to make sure that we are striving to support all of the learners in our school. So what does this mean? Basically, we're not eliminating subseparate programs, but we're trying to make more opportunities for inclusion. Resource rooms and subseparate programs will try to be connected to general education teams and classrooms so that we can have that support. So Kathy, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about kind of what these subseparate programs are.
Okay. First of all, we already do this. In our elementary school, we have an ABA classroom that's actually connected to one of our kindergarten classrooms by one door. And some of the kids go from that ABA classroom into the general ed kindergarten classroom on a regular basis. And what's really nice is some of those typical kindergarten kids come into the ABA room on a regular basis. So we already do it. But basically, what does this mean? The resource room is a sub-separate classroom, meaning it's a substantially separate special education classroom that provides English language arts or mathematics instruction to students who are 1.5 or 2 years behind their grade level peers in ELA and math. The focus program, and there are 3 of them, one at each of the schools, is our sub-separate social, emotional, and behavioral classroom. There's one in elementary, middle, and high school. And those programs support our students who are having social, emotional, or behavioral issues. And then third, we have our FATE program, which is here at the high school. This is for students who are intellectually impaired, and they teach, or they learn mostly life skills and vocational skills for adult living. And in the high school, the age range goes from age 14 to 22. And those students go from us into adult life programs. The ABA program at the middle school we call Connections. And basically, the students that come out of our Connections programs at the elementary school go into this program. And that also supports a life skills or a vocational program, but it teaches ELA and math and supports kids who have need social skills instruction and that sort of thing. Okay.
Kind of went through that, right?
Yeah, I kind of did.
So we can skip that.
Thanks
stuff.
for checking. Thanks. Looking at your approval, I know we can move on.
Okay, we'll skip that.
We talked about that. Okay, so restructuring the focus program. So about the purpose of focus program: provide social emotional support. Most students in the focus program are capable of accessing grade level standards. So the idea is to make sure the focus students are partnered with grade level classes or scheduled into grade level classes. Students will be given that opportunity for grade level instruction while they're being still provided with social emotional support they need from the focus staff. So a couple of things I just wanted to clarify, like these are not cost saving moves, these are not things where we've cut tons of staff. What we're trying to do is deliver the services a little bit differently. So that instead of one focus teacher in a room trying to teach 4 different grade levels, 4 different subjects, those students are able to go access the appropriate class and be supported by those staff. And then if they can't handle it, they can come back to the focus room where they can process through whatever the issue they might have. We also have behavior plans. So we're following those behavior plans. The students can kind of, typically it would be some sort of behavior plan where they'd be based on PBIS type stuff, where they're sort of earning different levels of kind of reward, for lack of a better term. And if they can't, like I said, if they're causing a disruption to the classroom or anything like that, they would just be removed and brought back to the focus room and supported there. But they'd still be able to access the grade level work that they were doing in their class while they were in the focus room. So the resource room, basically it's the same idea, trying to make sure that we're connecting the resource room to a classroom taught by a licensed content area teacher. So the idea is that students will be connected to the classroom. So in the younger grades, particularly like elementary school and then even in like say 4th and 5th grade, they're going to be connected to that classroom in times such as like homeroom and specials, which isn't really new. Like they're pretty much doing that right now. But we want to just try to build upon that connection a little bit so that they can access the classroom for inclusion support as the student is able to do it, according to the student's need. So I think the main shift you might see is that what we really want to see is sort of the resource room teacher, instead of having to kind of try to independently plan to try to reach, like we mentioned, multiple grade levels and multiple subjects, is really going to work more on connecting with the content area teacher and sort of modifying those assignments for the student so that then if it becomes appropriate or when it is appropriate, that student's able to be included in the classroom as much as possible. So that's sort of trying to build that shift where we're taking advantage of the specialties and the strengths of our staff. So we have a content specialist teacher who's planning a lesson in English. Well, our resource room teacher, who is a special ed specialist, should be able to not have to necessarily plan that English instruction, but work on more modifying it to make it adapt it so that the students in the resource room are able to access it. I know I
Kind of
talked
like
too
what
much.
you and I are doing for the school community.
Did I cover everything?
Yes, you did.
All right.
Who's the lead?
I'm not answering that question.
So expectations, we want to have all students have an opportunity for inclusion for some part of their day as their strengths allow. So it's going to be different for every kid, and that's the whole nature of special education. Student needs will continue to be addressed by both special education staff and general education staff partnering together. It's making sure we're at least building those connections and those pathways to the general education curriculum and hopefully courses. And student support provided by subset program will continue to exist and just be partnered with general education classrooms and teams. So we're just trying to really make it so it's not, so sub-separate doesn't necessarily mean completely sub-separate. We want to try to make as many pathways and connections to those content certified teachers and those regular education classrooms and peers as we can. And like I said, hopefully your goal is as students make progress, they would be able to go towards a less restrictive environment as they progress. So as they make growth and they make gains, they might be able to shift from the resource room to more inclusion as they go along, or from focus, from even receiving focus supports and behavior plans to maybe not needing it at all. And the way to start that is by building that connection more, so that there's, like I said, a pathway that we can, that continuum of service that you can walk along. So just an example, I can walk through the example sort of at CMS.
Okay, so you have a student who's in the focus program. And where is this focus program going to be located so that the student can have greater access to the regular classroom? So right now, we would like to see it located in the hallway that is across, right where the gym is in the middle school. So that would be located there, because the 5th and 6th grade are going to be in the 2 hallways that are on either side. So that if a student is in the general ed classroom and has a problem, the staff can easily get to that classroom and bring the student out if necessary. The goal, of course, is not to do that, because we want them to be in the general ed classroom as long as possible. So what happens is the staff would actually be in the room with them during the instructional time. And so the only time that they would leave is if the student had a problem. The majority of the time would be spent in that classroom because the student, in the majority of cases, has the academic capability to stay there. The problem is not the academic piece, the problem is the social emotional piece and the behavioral piece, and that's why the extra adult is there to support that student through whatever it is that is causing them to have difficulty with the academics. So the closer you have the room, the easier it is for the student to access the academics. And the same thing would be true in the elementary school, which is the next slide.
So just a couple of things about this focus model. What I've seen is typically if you have sort of some of these behavioral classrooms and you put everyone in a substantially separate classroom, the problem you have is that you then take away those peer role models.
That's right.
So then what happens is there's a level of, for lack of a better term, they say misbehavior that is almost becomes accepted within that classroom. And what we found is by providing, by providing these sort of behavior plans, by focus on specific goals, with students earning points, by earning points, earning freedoms or rewards, they're more motivated when they see how their grade level peers are behaving to kind of follow that pattern behavior. So on most days, it's fine, you have a supported classroom. Are there still days that students can become dysregulated or have some sort of issue that causes disruption? Yep, and then we still have the focus staff, it's able to bring them back to the focus room, work through it, go through probably a processing form, maybe get appropriate counseling staff involved if needed, depending on what it is. Student might stay there the rest of the day if that's what they need to do. Stay there the rest of the day. They might stay there for 3 days if that's what they need. But the idea is making sure that we're trying to meet what they need.
So-
And usually it could be anything as simple as, you know, they might have had the wrong breakfast food on that morning that triggered something.
So if there's multiple focus students and one focus teacher, there's an issue with one student, does the focus teacher leave back to the focus room with all the other focus students, or just with the one that needs the special time?
Just one. Just
Okay.
one student.
It typically be just one, but then at least we know where now we know that that room is manned, right? So
Yep.
basically if one of the other students were able to, you know, in a situation where they also needed support, we'd
Right.
be able to send that student down there as well.
Gotcha.
And I think those are the types of questions that, you know, on a day-to-day basis, you never know. If all three appear to be, you know, if there's 3 students in a classroom the teacher's with, and all 3 kind of seem to be struggling, she might say, you know what, we're all gonna go and just kind of process and check in, and we'll try to make it back the next period.
Right.
So I think there's a little bit of give and take there. But, you know, it's, you know, like I said, I think by providing more of those role models of what the
Sure.
expected behavior is,
Yeah.
especially the older students they don't like to be, you know, there's a point where they won't want to be singled out, and they're going to start kind of trying to behave so that they don't have someone, you know, following them everywhere they go if they're not earning points in their behavior plan, that type of stuff.
And that's the same model for 7th and 8th graders?
Yeah, it'd be the same. We basically try to do basically that same model from when focus starts around,
Kindergarten.
yeah, I think it was 1 in kindergarten.
But you're separating it 2 grades at a time?
Yeah, for now, we gotta look at the numbers exactly and see if there might be any spans where we do 3 or 4, we're not gonna stay from the 48 ones. But the only advantage we're thinking that might come with that is having more staff kind of connected to the kids, so that way, like to Eddie's point, if one's kind of manning the room, for lack of a better term, there could be more people out in the regular classes supporting, who will make all those decisions. Like I said, that'll be student specific, based on enrollment.
Right now, the enrollments in the programs aren't that big. So, okay, this is an example of a resource room at Clinton Elementary School. And we would locate this resource room in the first grade hallway. Right now, we have 2 resource rooms. One's called a learning lab, and the other one's called a resource room. And this would be, students would be assigned to a first or a second grade classroom as a homeroom. And so in the morning, they would go to their first grade classroom. And then the special education teacher and instructional assistants would be assigned to partner with the general ed teacher in the classroom. The ideal situation would be a first grade teacher and a special ed teacher co-teaching a first grade classroom. That would be the ideal. However, the special ed teacher would also have a classroom assigned to her right near this room, could be right there next door. And the idea is that they would pre-teach the lesson to this little first grader or to a group of first graders, and then they would go into the first grade classroom with all the other first graders in that room, and the general ed teacher would teach the lesson after the special ed teacher had just pre-taught the lesson. They would listen to with their classmates to the lesson and be taught the lesson by the gen ed teacher. Then after that lesson is over, the special education teacher is in the room, and with that same little group of special ed students, that special education teacher would reinforce what the kids had just heard from the general ed teacher. And then later in the day, or maybe in the next block of instruction, they would go to the WIN block, just like the one at the middle school and of course the one at the elementary school, and that would be another time that they would again be taught that same material, perhaps to do their homework or however is necessary to reinforce the same material again. So they would actually have 4 opportunities to learn that same material in one school day. So the more you repeat the material, especially to special needs students, the more they're going to have an opportunity to learn the material. So that is an example of what we would like to see in the elementary school, and it can be easily replicated at the middle school or the high school, depending upon what it is you're teaching, the people involved, and where the classroom is located. But the ideal situation is that the material is replicated, because for some special needs students, they need that replication over and over again until they understand it.
when we talk about different models, such as like push in or pull out, we're talking about those types of things. So, for example, if you have a reading, almost like a reading workshop model. So a lot of times a reading workshop model, you might start with a focus objective, a focus lesson for your class. That's probably going to have some sort of grade level connection to maybe a grade level appropriate text or standard. Students would be able to be in there, maybe access that, hear some of that grade level instruction, hopefully with the support of the teacher there. And then typically what happens after that focus lesson is you're going to kind of break off into more stations. One might be a teacher station with the classroom teacher, one might be using Chromebooks to do something, one might be reading a Just Right book at your reading level, one might be doing writing, those types of things the students are going to be interacting with. Well, at that time, a special education teacher who's in the class could basically, their station that they go to could be working just in that classroom with the special education teacher and trying to access as much as they can. And if that's not appropriate, or if they're moving on to something that they're definitely not going to be able to access, they might be able to pull out, go to the resource room, maybe spend some time reviewing that focus lesson or that lesson for the day. So I think, and then also, particularly at the elementary school, with the 2 different wind blocks during the day for the next year's schedule to allow more of this flexible, that should be the part where it's going to be probably the easiest connection would be at the elementary school, because you only have to connect really with one classroom, and you're going to have 2 periods of flexible time that you can build with.
And the other piece of this is that they don't all have to be special ed kids. If the 2 teachers are in the same room, the teachers can work with whatever child needs help. It doesn't have to be a kid with an IEP. And that's the nice piece of it.
So I guess just kind of, I figured I'd just sort of summarize, why are we doing all this stuff? Why have we talked about all these different things tonight, all these different proposed changes? And the goal is to raise the bar for all students, okay? And I think that's, whether it's adding the enrichment courses in terms of like Project Lead the Way, whether it's looking at, some of those other enrichment opportunities during, say, like a WIN block, but also for our special education population. Providing opportunities and pathways for all students to reach their full potential, providing access to rigorous content for all students, providing supports and enrichment opportunities to meet the academic needs of all students, providing opportunities to engage, all students to engage with their peers and connect to the school. So I think these are just all sort of, what are we trying to do? We're not trying to, I don't think there's anything in here that's going to, nothing should be, we're not worried that any change or anything that we're doing is going to sort of make any compromise to the regular education classroom. We're trying to make sure that we're just maximizing the best experience we can for all students. So that's sort of overview of kind of where we stand right now with sort of our staffing, programming, those types of things. So I don't know if you guys have any other questions or, okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so the next thing in your packet is a posting from School Spring. So I posted this on Friday, April 13th. It was for the Director of Pupil Services. So what I did is I just tried to make a job description that was similar to the one that was in the draft budget. I posted it as an anticipated opening. I gave it about a month or so as far as the application process. If you note, one thing I did put at the bottom, right before, on the second page before it says position type, it says, please note, this is a draft job description subject to final approval. So I wanted to get the posting out, so I tried to do the best I could in putting something together. I also wanted to bring it to the committee to make sure that you were comfortable with the posting, and if you have any other specific concerns as we go through the search process, we can address it. My understanding for this position is that really this would be a position that we would conduct the search. There'd be a search committee that would conduct the search. We would essentially present the candidate to the school committee for approval at the end of the search. And what I don't know is if a member of the school committee would like to be part of that search committee.
as we do it. I don't know if anyone has a strong desire to be part of that, or if you want me just to form a search committee of, and we'll form a full search committee. We'll make sure that we have, teacher representation and all that kind of stuff, and community representation. But I didn't know if the school committee wanted to have a representative on that search committee.
What's the pleasure of the committee?
I think it makes sense to have somebody on there, but I don't think I would personally. I wouldn't have the time to do it, but I don't know.
But he'd like to volunteer one
No,
for you guys.
Yeah, basically, I guess, if you want to phrase it that way. I mean, if we choose
It's
not
okay.
to have anyone on there, that's fine, but I think it does make sense to have somebody on there.
I'd say typically, in my experience, for most all the administrative hires I've had to make, whether it's a principal or anything, we've always extended an opportunity for a school committee member to be on the search committee. But sometimes they are and sometimes they aren't. So I think it's up to.
So what timeline are you looking at?
Well, I put until
What's the
May 11th
process?
for the posting. Then we would probably have an initial meeting, probably one other meeting to screen candidates, an interview, one or two interview nights, and then maybe one follow-up, like deliberations. So it's probably looking at, maybe 5 meetings or so. 2 of them might be long for interview nights.
Okay. Well,
You don't need an
Yeah.
answer right now. You guys can think about it and let me
Right.
know. That's fine. And also, if you have any specific comment or suggestions on the job description, I don't know if you want to, approve it. If there's things you want me to address in it, that's.
Just a quick question on the
Yep.
job description.
Yep.
You did a nice job putting it all together, but as I read through it, and even with some of your description, you refer to as being the next in command to the superintendent.
Yep.
I wonder if we would consider making it just assistant superintendent of people services versus director of people services, so there's a clear-cut expectation. And I think that we potentially could be exposed to a higher level of candidate if we put it right out there, the assistant superintendent title.
Yeah. No.
I don't know, I do see that the jobs is, in my experience, is a little separate. And I don't know if, there's a fairly distinct role for a director of pupil services that sometimes can fall under an assistant superintendent's role, but.
I'm just looking at the description of.
No, I know.
In place of the superintendent, next in command to the superintendent.
Yep. No, and I would say that the job description that I might have modeled this after was titled, I think, Assistant Superintendent for Pupil Services. So, I mean, there's definitely some, as I was going through to make sure I tried to hit everything that we wanted to hit, that was part of what I was modeling it after. Modeling's a good word, right?
So if, so this is out there now. It's out there as an anticipated opening. There's a caveat that, the job description is somewhat flexible.
Yeah.
So I think if you want to go back and review it again, and if there are, strong opinions in terms of going from, and if there are strong opinions, feel free to let me know that you'd like to volunteer for the search committee. But if not, and you would like representation, then you can either let me know, or failing that, I can serve in that capacity if we don't have anyone else that can coordinate with their schedule. So does that work? Take a look at the job description and.
Yeah, and I can do.
Dr. Meyer know.
And I can do a little more digging into some of those, what maybe some of the pros and cons of assistant superintendent versus director might be, and just kind of see. One concern might be, you might attract some different people with the term assistant superintendent. those people might also be expecting a little more money with that title, so you have to kind of figure it both ways there. So,
I think your point is a good one, though. The wider a net we can cast, the more likely we are to get, what we need.
It was more a question, honestly, not necessarily saying we should go.
Yeah. All right, so just, I guess, I'll try to just do a little more homework into that, see if we want to tweak the title or anything. But at least it's out there, so we could start getting some interest. I do think we're definitely in double-digit applicants already on School Spring. And then we can, and then if anyone has interest in serving on the committee, then just let me know, and we'll try to map out a timeline. I think the earlier we can get moving on some of these things, the better. So then the next point would be the FY19 draft budget reductions. So I gave a little one-page handout to you. The Finance Committee has informed me that it appears as though we're going to receive a 3% increase in our general fund budget for next year. That's an increase of $664,561. So I do think it should be, kind of noted and at least appreciated that the a 3% increase, I think sometimes when you're talking numbers in terms of people just start talking about ones and twos and threes, sometimes you forget about the actual magnitude of the number that actually has. So, 3% does represent $664,000 more dollars this year than we got last year. Our current draft budget called for a proposed increase of 3.94% to the general fund. That was an increase of $872,000. So if we were going to just back down our general fund expenses to get from our draft budget to the likely recommendation from the Finance Committee, we would need to reduce our draft budget by $208,368. The other option is to look at increasing our revenue, which would mean either trying to contribute more from circuit breaker or school choice. So those are other options that we do have as well. And then, so there's a couple other things I want us to consider. We need to make a few budget adjustments. The first one would be to adjust the Assabet tuition. We did have a few additional students accepted into Assabet this year based on the fact that Assabet did not end up with a waiting list this year. So there was a few more students accepted. We still don't know exactly how many will go. Typically every year, there's a group of students that are accepted and then some choose not to go. In past years, what's typically happened is there's been a waiting list. So as students didn't go, they just went to the next people on the waiting list. This year, there is no waiting list at all. So if students decide not to go, it's just less that we have to pay.
So that increase, Steve, is just the new freshman class, right? We're not the sophomores, juniors, and seniors at Assabet that we send there.
Yeah.
There will be sophomores, juniors, seniors next year.
But it's all the same. It's like the same kids.
No,
yeah.
but I'm just saying there's not an increase in those numbers. It's just the ones.
Just for this class, this accepted class.
The incoming or the outgoing freshmen, I guess. Tell us.
Yeah. So, that's the total right there. Projected revenue total of like 1.73 million. I think it was about $80,000. I think ultimately, worst case scenario, more than what we had in the draft budget. So we'll just have to make that adjustment. We want to make it as accurate as we can at the time we're making the changes. We want to include the alternative school pilot program costs, so we'll make sure that we incorporate those into the draft budget. We want to make sure we can get that. I think right now we're up to, I think it was 5 students that we've already kind of have as likely to be candidates for that program. One thing we might want to do is consider an additional section in kindergarten. We'll get to that in a couple minutes, but right now we are at about 153. I couldn't tell if that was a 2 or a 3. 153 students in our kindergarten with 7 sections. So, and with anticipated, typically with kindergarten, you end up getting those last-minute registrations over the summer when some people realize that they need to register their kid for kindergarten, or they're able to register their kid for kindergarten. So something that we should really consider is working on a contingency plan to add an additional section in kindergarten. The other thing, though, the last two I think are more positive ones in this adjustments. Circuit breaker reimbursement changes. The state government is looking at trying to increase the FY18 circuit breaker reimbursement, which means we could end up getting more money this year than we anticipated, which would allow us to apply more for next year to the next year's budget. And also our special education out-of-district placements themselves, as we do look at, like we said, some people that might be appropriate to return to the district, whether in the high school or the alternative program. Or we also had a couple students who we weren't sure if they were going to graduate, who it appears as though they are going to graduate now that we're later in the year, that we might have some reductions in those costs. So I will sit with Kathy and Karen, and we will review all of those students and numbers, as soon as we get an opportunity to do that, so we can try to make a clear, get a clear picture of exactly where we are. Karen and I did sit down last week and tried to look and say, basically played the game of, let's not look at special education out-of-district tuition's costs yet. Let's just say if we had to cut $208,368 out, if we had to reduce our draft budget by that amount, how would we possibly go about doing that? So this represents sort of a menu of items that we kind of came up with. Some of those you can see, some of those are going to be things that we're going to be able to do that don't really impact much in terms of, programmatically or any major changes we're trying to make. Obviously, one of those considered on there is the elimination of the full-time AD position. Also on that list is basically continuing the current athletic fees instead of eliminating athletic fees. So that's about, almost 90,000 of those of that amount is those two items. Like I said, I don't think we should make any decisions tonight. I'm not asking you to make any decisions tonight. I'm sharing with you sort of a draft list that we looked at. I think before we make any decisions on what we need to change, I need to get you a clear picture accounting for everything in terms of circuit breaker options, school choice options, and the out-of-district placement review, so that we're, like I said, I know off the top of my head, there's at least one $100,000 placement that was in or real close to $100,000 that we had budgeted that we know we're no longer going to be accountable for next year. So right away, that's okay. Well, that offsets maybe our asset bed increase. So some of these things are going to kind of balance out, and we got to see where that's going to put us. So warrant articles, basically. The Finance Committee said that they would be able to support the $100,000 textbook and technology warrant article and about $140,000 for capital improvements. They said that we obviously would be able to, they didn't pick things from an itemized list. They said that basically we could go through and sort of reprioritize whatever we wanted to do. So it could be, that 140 might, like the security cameras was on that other article that they basically didn't really support. We might be able to move security cameras to the capital improvements for some of the HVAC or whatever we have that we want to prioritize, working with the director of facilities. So that's sort of an update on the budget. So I don't think it's catastrophic. I think talking to other departments in the town, other town departments and the Finance Committee and sort of what they're working with, I think they did show support for the schools, and I do think that they're trying to help us move forward with some of the initiatives we're trying to make, and I think we'll be okay. It's just a matter of us sitting down and really sharpening our pencils on some of these figures and seeing exactly what we need to eliminate.
Steve, does I know it was between us and the police department. Has the resource officer been? And I know there's two different, well, maybe three different. There's a lot of departments involved in that, and everybody supports it. But there's, you're talking town money, is there?
We haven't had much talk recently on that. We do have another safety committee meeting on Wednesday. We might be able to.
Come on, that.
But we might be able to. We could probably revisit that, because you're right. I haven't had. It comes in spurts, right? We have the conversations, right. And then you get distracted by trying to do this.
At least they're picking up on that, but
yeah. I'm sure that the police are gonna, have their own budget challenges as they get their information from the Finance Committee. So, how we work to try to do that. I will give the Clinton Police Department tremendous credit, though. Since our last meeting, they wanted to try to have more of a presence in the schools and in front, and they are here all the time. I mean, I get worried. I don't make sure I don't pull into my office too fast in the morning because I know one of them's going to be sitting there. All right, so that's kind of an update. Like I said, I don't think we should make any decisions tonight, and I don't think any of these things should be considered as definitely like not in the budget, right? This is sort of just a place to start, and before we actually start going down any roads, let's determine exactly what our problem is. So we need to gather some more information from that top paragraph first, okay? School choice vote. So every year we need to take a vote if we want to participate in the school choice program. So I did give you in your packets, you will see there's an enrollment report. It's landscape here with a little, it's just a little, sorry, it's enrollment projections. So I just tried to make some approximate class size projections there. That's why you can see the kindergarten enrollment at 153 with 7 sections right now is 22, which is kind of a high for a kindergarten class. It's okay, but it's not ideal. But I wouldn't necessarily be as concerned if I didn't anticipate that we're probably going to get another, 10 or so enrollments over the summer, because that's just typically what happens. You have parents, first time they're enrolling their kid in school and those types of things. So I do think that adding another kindergarten section could be on our radar. Overall, the rest of the class sizes I think are pretty reasonable, and they, so the question is, do we want to participate in school choice? And if so, do we want to, at this point, I think all we need to determine is yes or no, do we want to participate in the school choice program? And then ultimately what we could do is, if you wanted me to come back with specific numbers, we could cap grades at certain, we could say we have limited openings, and we can come back and say, hey, we're accepting, if you tell me you don't want third grade to go over, whatever that is, 21 kids in a class, and we want to cap it and say, hey, we only have 3 other openings. We can do that. Or we could say we don't want to go over 22 kids in a class, and we have 10 openings. So we could be that specific with it. I don't think we necessarily have to get that specific right now at this stage in the game. We could just say that we want to be, we could probably take a vote saying we want to participate in the school choice program with limited openings in some grades, and then we'll just continue to do is update this, and if we need to actually vote and inform the state that we're closing a grade, we can do that.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion to continue the practice of school choice in the Clinton Public Schools?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a
I'll second it.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I think we definitely need to see the numbers of them.
Of like what it would look like, so I can try to.
I think we've done that in the past, though, where we limit.
I think last year was limited in grades 4 and 5. I think we actually said there was none, and then in all other grades they were able to do that. So
you just do that analysis.
Yeah. So what I can do.
You certainly wouldn't have school choice for kindergarten. Or would you, because...
Well, it depends.
what happens over
It
the summer,
depends,
you might need
because
more to
if you get
fill.
them, then it could help pay, depending on how many there is. If it's
Right.
3 kids and that's $15,000, well, that's a quarter of your extra teacher, you know what I mean?
Right,
So there's some certain things with that. So I can try to continue to follow this. We'll continue to look at the trends up to, particularly with kindergarten. We'll keep an eye on that. And as we get closer to the end of the year, if we want to actually put more of a hard cap, like 10 kids, 7 kids, whatever, then we can do that, and then go from there. But obviously, it's hard to do that too early, because one family of triplets moves out, and now you get 3 more openings. So.
Anyone else?
I would, be following up with the same statement as far as, I'm in favor of going with school choice, but with us knowing where the caps are going to be.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great that kids want to come to the Clinton Public Schools, that there's an option for them to be educated in the town of Clinton and in this terrific system. My only caveat would be I wouldn't want to do it at the expense of having to add additional sections and/or resources and/or specials that we hadn't anticipated for. So.
And this enrollment
and class size numbers include all the kids who are school choice that are here already.
Good.
You know, so we would just be talking additional students. Yep.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to continue being part of the school choice? Unanimous, thank you.
All right. So we will notify the state of that. I did put in here a couple pages, and I think we can talk a little more about this at the safety meeting as well on Wednesday. But I did meet with an individual who runs a school safety consulting. He actually did a school safety kind of audit at the middle school pro bono a few years ago, just due to a relative that was in the building at the time. I met with him and we looked at, he kind of walked me through sort of what his phases could be, sort of what his scope of work would look like if he was going to come do a safety audit of the buildings. You know, at this point, the cost of the safety audit is about, I want to say it was about $4,000. No, it was about $1,500 a building, so it'd be about $4,500 to do each building. And then there was another additional cost of like, I want to say it was about $1,500 or $2,000 a building to get the full, for him to do like a full report that actually has like action steps and implementation steps and recommendations and stuff in it, not just kind of like, here's what I saw, but really do that analysis. It's almost the same price. So, his quote would be, if we were going to do a security audit of safety and security audit of each building with a report that has recommended strategies, I think it would cost us approximately $9,000 or somewhere in that ballpark. So, I met with this individual so we could, because I knew we did it at the middle school previously. I knew it was something that kind of got thrown around a little bit as we were doing like the school safety forum and those types of things. So at least I got that, that's a ballpark quote. I just don't know how the committee feels about it, if it's something that they want me to, actively pursue. Would you like me to try to get a couple other bids for this type of thing? Are we not concerned about trying to do formal audits right now? I don't know if there's a little direction from this, or if you just want to defer it to the safety committee right now, and we can talk about it on Wednesday with the police and see how they feel. Yeah.
Defer to the safety committee?
I think that sounds
Okay.
reasonable.
Yep. I mean, we have a meeting Wednesday to talk about this stuff anyway. We're talking about Alice. And I think we need to look at the Alice scope of services, because we are signed up for the Alice training, and they will do some work with us as part of that contract over the summer to look at our policies and stuff. So I don't know if they do like a site visit, but they'll do the policy stuff with us and procedures. So we can maybe compare those scope of services as well.
Just as I read through, so I know that the last safety meeting, Officer Sylvester did a lot of the talk. A lot of the stuff that's in here, he was already talking about it.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, let's see what they get to say.
So we'll bring it up with the police and go from there. Okay, great. Is that the end of my list yet?
No.
No.
The library strategic plan.
Yep. Do you guys have that email in there? Did she give you that, or is that just in my packet? The library, the Clinton Public Library is looking for school representation to be part of their strategic planning process. The commitment would be 2 hours on May 12th from 10:30 to 10:30 to 12:30, and 2 hours on another evening in July. So basically, they're looking for a 4-hour commitment. They would like someone from the schools to be involved. They requested that, they'd love to have a member of the school committee or a representative of the school on the planning committee to help us move forward. So I didn't know if anyone in the school committee would like to be part of that.
I just served on a library strategic. I can't believe that would have been 5 years ago. But maybe it was. I don't know. I wouldn't mind doing that, but I know I'm not available on May 12th. That's the day of the tribute.
Exactly.
It's
That's
a tough day.
Right.
She might
That's
wanna
fine.
consider- I mean, if she
Yeah.
considered changing that, but.
I'm not available on the 12th either.
Yeah.
All right. I do have, I did talk to Jenna Tolan, our elementary librarian, and she said she would be willing to be a school representative if you're,
exactly.
if you're willing to have, if the school committee is okay with
So
that.
what are they envisioning would be the role of school representation in this process?
I'm not sure exactly. You know, I think it's really just trying to, you know, help coordinate with, you know, they're going to want to have their programs to support the students. They're going to probably want to see how we could maybe integrate or interface with them. So I think that's the only
Probably makes
reason.
more
Yeah.
sense than to
For a
have a
librarian
working
to be
school
Right. Have like our
person there,
Yeah.
rather than us.
Right.
You know, if that's the goal.
Okay. All right, so I'll try to confirm with her. So I will make sure that the school has representation there. We'll just, but it won't be a school committee member, and that's fine. Okay?
I mean, if they feel strongly about it, as
I think they'll be
Mrs.
fine.
Lapanta said, that we just can't do the 12th.
Right.
Do we have any, I'm sorry, do we have anything new from the policy or marketing committees?
Nothing other than I think this is our first meeting since we had the STEAM fair at
Yeah.
the middle school. Went well. Thanks to Anne Marie and Brenny helped out being a judge. I thought it went great.
I was gonna get kicked out or something. It wasn't quick.
Oh, he's kidding. For the 10 people watching, he's kidding.
No, it went well. Our guest speaker was great. Alicia Hogue, what's her married name, Marie again? I totally.
Casey.
What's that?
Casey.
Casey, thank you. But she spoke. She did a great job, and we got some good footage of it. So now we're just waiting for the digital media group to put it together into a video. And we can share it. Depending on its length, we may be able to watch it here, or maybe just send you guys a link on
Oh,
YouTube.
please,
What it
yeah.
is. But yeah, no, that's it. And we will be meeting the marketing committee in the next couple of weeks. I gotta get a date out there for all of us to get together.
We should just start meeting over like the million dinners we're going to have in the next
I know.
month.
We do. I would remind the committee to please look at your calendars and to look at the dates. We've got a number of events coming out, all great events to be part of and to be included in, but we want to make sure that we're represented at those events coming up.
Here's something I saw, I think, is it the Clinton Police, that they're having some type of, maybe it's a drug awareness night or something that's coming up at the high school?
Yep. I was having that for new business, but that's a great
okay.
question.
All right. Is there any new business?
So there is going to be, we're now part of MOPC, which is the Massachusetts Opioid Abuse Prevention Collaborative. It covers 5 cities and towns, Fitchburg, Athol, Gardner, Leominster, and Clinton. That connection was really kind of made through the Board of Health. And so they've reached out, the kind of coordinator for that has reached out to the high school. And I think it's on Monday, May 7th in the evening for like parents or families. And then Tuesday, the 8th, on the half day, there'll be an assembly for students in school. And it's, I believe the title of the program is, if it's not this exactly, it's close. It's like, if only they had known. And it sort of talks about kind of the dangers of substance abuse and addiction and those types of things. So it's a couple, an evening event for parents, and then followed up in the next day for all the students. So that's coming up. That's next week already, I guess.
A week from tonight.
Yeah. 2 other pieces of new business. One, we are having some heating issues in this building right now. It looks like we had an expansion tank fail, which caused a buildup of pressure in the system, which then caused some leakage in certain areas and a pump to fail. So Russ has been working with the plumbing companies to try to kind of cobble it together for right now. But we do know that it is going to be, we are going to have to do some repairs specifically to the expansion tanks. There's three expansion tanks. We were down to one. The one has now failed. So we're looking at how we do that. We have talked a little bit to the town about the kind of the emergency contingency, like repair money that they budget each year, to try to see if we might be able to access some of that to try to get those heating repairs done right now, depending on the cost of them. So Russ is working on that, trying to get the full quote for what the repair would be. These were not necessarily the whole thing, because we didn't know about the expansion tank, but the pump part of it and some of the other stuff was stuff that we actually had included on our warrant article, because Russ had identified it as things that were needed to be addressed. So that's something that might get done now as a sort of a emergency repair situation. I'm just looking forward to 80-degree weather on Wednesday, so no one not an issue. And then the last thing would just be just to review our meeting dates real quick. Our next meeting is May 14th. That is the Tri-Council meeting, so that's also an early one where we'll have another dinner, and we'll go over some school improvement plans. The meeting after that, though, is currently scheduled for Memorial Day. I don't know who picked that date back in August. It was probably me, but we probably want to reschedule that meeting. So I know at one point I talked to some of you about maybe looking at that Tuesday. I know that Tuesday wasn't going to work for you. You threw up maybe moving it earlier, the week before, right, to maybe that Wednesday or something like that, the 23rd. I'm okay with moving it that week before at some point if there's a day that week that works, because we are going to have the town meeting on June 4th, so I don't think we want to push it back too close to the town meeting. So I don't know if anyone has any...
Can we just keep it on a Monday and make it May 21st?
It would be May... Oh, wait. It would be May 21st. Yeah, I mean, if that's okay with everyone, instead of doing the 28th, we do the 21st. It gives us the back-to-backers, but it'll be... I can try to keep it sort of focused just on, that'd be our second one in May, so we would do student recognitions, and then I think all we would do is last-minute budget prep before the town meeting. And I may try to keep maybe a short agenda for it, unless anything pressing comes up. Is that fine with me?
I'm good with the 21st.
I can do the 21st.
All right. So we'll move the second meeting in May to the 21st.
I can't, that's fine.
Perfect.
All right.
I can say anything I want then.
And I think, well, I don't know how many meetings we even tentatively scheduled in June. I think some years there's been one meeting in June. I think some years there's been 2 meetings in June. I think our first meeting in June would be scheduled to be, we would have the town meeting. We would see each other at the town meeting on the 4th. And then the 11th, I think, is our first scheduled meeting. That's also Election Day. And then, I don't know if we have any others. I don't know if we scheduled any others beyond that. So it's just something, we don't have to decide for June meetings right now, but it's just something to think about as far as, when do we want to meet? How often do we want to meet in June? I couldn't remember if you guys do 1 meeting in June or 2. I don't know which one, where you were. So we'll just, we can decide that next meeting. At least we know we'll move the May one to the 21st. And then I'll make sure that's an agenda item in the next meeting, is to discuss the June meetings, and you guys can give some thought to that. Okay?
Okay.
And I don't believe there's a need to go into executive session. We did have a negotiation session between the last meeting and now, but we really, I would say that there's not really anything that requires there wasn't any significant changes that would need to run by the committee at that meeting.
All right.
And I just wanted to thank, and Joel also coaches baseball, and I just want to pass this on from a couple of members of the board that talked to me today. The availability and the cooperation, everything that the schools have done for the youth baseball. I mean, they use the Ash Street field, and I know Casey Gannon's been working on that, and then I was able to actually get in the middle school with my team, and I know you squeezing in all the youth baseball along with all your school sports. And, between, like I say, Mary, who schedules everything, they want to thank you also for, and I just, for everybody in all 3 schools, and the principals and your custodians who are very, very flexible as we bring in the kids in there. I just want to, pass that on from the guys from the youth baseball.
And I think that speaks to all of the youth programs too, that Clinton is a wonderful place where all of these, any sort of territorial issues just stop at the water's edge when it comes to working in kids' best interest. And I want to extend my thanks to all of those people, to the schools, to all of these groups that come together. We really are quite fortunate to be part of this community, and thanks for ending on that.
We're also very lucky that Mary handles a lot of that scheduling, because she's like the world's nicest person and can kind of tell someone like, I can't get you that, but I can get you this, and they all seem happy.
It worked for me.
And by the way, thank you, Mary, for everything that you do. Last week was Administrative Professionals Day, and just on behalf of all of us, we are eternally grateful for everything that you do. Anything else? We have a motion to adjourn?
1 second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry I didn't get here earlier in the meeting, but I just wanted to let you know that yesterday, the 7th and 8th grade band and a few select 6th grade members played with the Atlantic Winds Symphony Band at Atlantic Union College. The Atlantic Winds asked earlier this year if they could use our middle school band room on Tuesday nights for rehearsal, and they agreed for use of the space that
to provide those opportunities,
yeah, for us, and they gave us free concert tickets in December so that 30 students could go hear adult musicians, some professionals, some who just love to play their instrument and continue to play as an adult. And then this spring, we had agreed to play 2 numbers with them. They played like 10 by themselves, and then we joined them for 2. They didn't know how well our kids played. They were so impressed with the level of preparation. And our kids learned so much. Yesterday's day was so much better than I could have ever envisioned. And for our kids to sit next to adults who are confident in their playing, and our kids gain so much confidence and so much poise. But on the flip side, the Atlantic Winds also don't have any percussionists that show up. And I haven't been able to convince some of our percussionists that, they should stick their neck out and show up to play with this group. And then the conductor wasn't quite sure that our middle school kids would be up to snuff to playing with an adult group. And it was just such a great pleasure to have 2 Atlantic Winds adults come up to me at the end of the concert and say, those 4 percussionists were phenomenal. Can you just get them to come to every one of our concerts? The kids had a great time. It was just a super win for all, and I know that the director said to me at the end of the concert, we have some more great things planned that we want to expand this partnership. We need to talk.
That's great.
So I just wanted to share with you that great stuff. And our concert for the town is Wednesday night, May 9th at the high school. So I know on your busy schedule,
it's on your
you'll be in the high school,
Yep.
grades 5 through 12 at 7 p.m. And then we're starting to work on our Memorial Day parade, and sent out the notice that also included that, the middle school needs to help the high school with graduation. And then talking to the 4th graders about, we're going to give a recorder concert for your parents to show you all your pre-band skills. So the music department's in full swing, but we're having a ball. Okay.
Super.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
That one's always unanimous, right?